Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. I'm Verit Kogan and absolutely delighted to have a very special person with us today, a special guest by the name of Kute Blackson. Kute is a transformational teacher, inspirational speaker, visionary, and national best-selling author of two extraordinary books. One is called You Are the One, and his new book, The Magic of Surrender, published by Penguin Random House. Kute is the host of an incredible podcast called Soul Talk, which I invite you to check out, and has been featured on the Larry King Now Show, NPR, Dr. Drew, Fox and Friends, and many more. For over 20 years, he has been inspiring audiences around the world. From the first time he spoke in front of 3,000 people at the age of 8 to speaking to over 300 or in over 300 venues by the age of 18. To helping organizations develop authentic leadership and achieve extraordinary performance. In fact, he was recognized by Inc. magazine as the mindfulness guru that billionaires go to for advice. Welcome, Kute.
Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. And I think that this is such an important time to have a conversation about the topic of surrender. So what do you mean by surrender?
What do I mean by surrender? I mean, that's the question, right? I think in our culture, we have so many misconceptions about what surrender means. This idea that surrender is weak, that surrender is passive, that surrender means giving up or like waving the white flag, that if you surrender, you're going to be left behind, you're going to be a doormat, you're going to be a victim, you're going to be trodden on, taken advantage of. And I think these are all misconceptions. And so I really wanted to, should we say, reframe a new paradigm of true surrender, because I believe that if you understand the real essence of surrender, that surrender is in fact the most important thing that we can do. Surrender, I believe, in my experience, is the most powerful thing that we can do as leaders, as visionaries, as human beings on this planet. That, in surrender, there's this fear of like, oh, if I surrender, I'm not going to manifest my intentions or my goals. I'm going to get less in life. And I'm actually saying that if you surrender, truly surrender in the way I'm talking about, what if you didn't get less, but you ended up getting more, like more than you could have imagined and intended with your limited, should we say, mental awareness. And so surrender really is, it's to let go of control, or I should say the illusion that we're in control, because in many ways we think we're in control, but maybe we're not as in control as we thought. If the last two and a half years of this pandemic showed us, maybe we're not as in control as we thought we were. Surrender is to stop trying to force life and to manipulate and force life to fit our limited idea of how we think it should be. Letting go of the idea of who we think we should be and how we think we should be, so that we can be available and open to the true, authentic unfolding that is seeking to happen in a situation, in an experience, in a relationship. And so surrender is taking the limitations off of life so that we're available, we're open. If you look at the truly, I would say, great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Mandela, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, none of which were weak people, by the way. They all, when I studied them, they all, I think, got to the point where they surrendered themselves. They surrendered themselves to life. They surrendered themselves to their souls. They surrendered themselves to that vision or that mission that was bigger than themselves, that calling that was bigger than themselves. And I think in that surrender, they were able to transcend their own human limitations and tap into like another dimension of their own potential. And I think that's when they were able to get themselves out of the way, and life was able to use them and flow through them and move through them and create through them in ways that I think they couldn't have done on their own. And so I think surrender is the key to the next level. Surrender is the password for freedom.
Mhm.
And I think as human beings, we all, like I've never met a person who I've asked, do you want more magic in your life? I don't mean like Harry Potter woo woo, but like magic, amazingness, blessings, beauty, joy, abundance. Everybody says, I want more of that. But often we don't want to surrender. We don't want to let go. And so, in my book, I'm really saying, if you want more magic, you have to surrender, and surrender really is the key that unlocks that next level. And so I think if people really understand surrender, I want people to be excited to surrender. I want people to be inspired to surrender, not like this thing that, well, I know I should do, but it's like going to the dentist. I know I should do, but I don't really want to go, and there's this resistance. And so um, I really feel as a humanity, there is a shift happening on the planet. And I think the last few years has been a preparation, has been preparing us as a humanity, initiating us into a new way of being. The old paradigm, and I think the old way of being, has been all about sort of control and like making things happen and living from the paradigm of the ego, which is all about, nothing wrong with this. I think it's a level, but it's been more about know what you want, get clear on what you want, know what you want, and manifest from the level of the mind. Um, you can manifest from the level of the mind and the logic. It has its benefits, but I look at someone like Mandela, truly great leader, um, a leader of a nation, a leader of people. His legacy, his impact to this day, even when his physical body is gone, still lives on, is still inspiring us. I don't think he could have predicted and planned his life. Yeah, I'm going to spend 27 years in prison. Let me put that on the poster board and the strategy. And then I'm going to come out. And then I don't think he could have planned that. That was a life that was beyond his capacity to vision and imagine. To me, that's the power of surrender. And so the old paradigm is really about get clear on what you want, know what you want, go for it. Great. There is a merit to that, but I think there's limitations in that way of living. Surrender is really about asking a different question. Takes into consideration, okay, get clear on what you want. The challenge is many times we don't really ask the question like, who am I? And who is the I that is wanting? Who is the I that is projecting? Who is the I that is setting the goals? Because if we don't know who we are, like often we might have the experience of getting what we thought we wanted, only to realize that what we thought we wanted was not what we really wanted. It was just what we thought we wanted based on who we thought we were. And if we're not in touch with who we truly are authentically, then even our goals and our projections are going to be limited or misaligned, right? And so I think the question I'm inviting people to ask themselves is a bigger question. It's more about feeling into what is the deepest expression, what is the deepest impulse that life is seeking to express through me, what is my soul, what is the universe seeking to express through me, and just becoming still and feeling more deeply than the mind or the logic or society or one's ego, so that you can feel to the most authentic truth, the most authentic essence. And from that place of deep feeling, deep truth, deep surrender, you're able to align with what is real, with the goal that's real, a purpose that's real, an intention that's real, a dream that's real. And when you align with that deeper truth, then you can align your mind, your logic, your ego, your strategy, your resources, your money, your intentions with what's true. Then you're moving in a direction that is aligned. And so surrender, that's the essence of what I mean by surrender.
And you explain that really, really well and with such heart, because you've lived it and because you teach it and you've seen the impact. Here's where my mind is right now. So a lot of the people listening are hearing this. Maybe they've heard some version of this before and it sounds magical and they want it and they love it, yet the schedule is full and there are many protective parts of them, perhaps very deeply unconscious part of them,
Yeah.
that um, are trying to control everything
Mm-hmm.
so that they will stay safe and certain. And so it makes it really hard to be still and ask those bigger questions.
Mm.
And so, what might you say to particularly high performing individuals that their superpower is the fix it, take charge kind of capability? Um, because what you're suggesting kind of requires them to disobey that at least for a little bit, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Yes, and that can be a tough thing for someone. So what do you have to say for them?
Yeah, first, I want to say I'm not necessarily, and this is a very important question, I'm not necessarily saying to disobey that, because that can seem a little scary for people, like disobey that. No, and then the resistance kicks in. I'm saying to develop a new relationship with that, a new relationship with themselves, because what resists, and let's break it down and speak to it. What resists surrender is the ego. And if we understand the nature of something, that's how you can develop a relationship with it. And so ego isn't bad. Ego isn't good. Ego is it just is a ego is that vehicle that we use in this human experience to navigate life. And so it's just a vehicle. Everybody has ego. If we met the Dalai Lama, the sort of supposed enlightened guy, right? We met the Dalai Lama on the street and we said, "Hey, Dalai Lama." When we waved him, he would turn around and wave back. Hopefully, if he was feeling in a good mood, he would turn around, acknowledge that we called him. That requires a level of ego in order to do that. So ego isn't bad. It's just our relationship with it, right? And so someone like the Dalai Lama probably has a relationship with the ego where he's not so identified with it and so fixated on it and so attached to it that it controls him and runs him. And it's the over identification with ego that creates anxiety and stress and control. And so ego is what we've been conditioned to believe that we are. And the degree to which we've been conditioned by society, by parents, by life, by programming, by religion, by education, by school, by media, the degree to which we believe ourselves to be that ego thing, me, is the degree to which we're not free, and the degree to which we find it hard to let go and trust and surrender and kind of be open and curious. And so ego is not bad. So ego is not a thing. Ego is a process of identification. And so ego is name, body, form, experience, past experiences, history, trauma, pain, successes, failures, which creates a sense of identity that we attach to and hold on to, that we call me. I'm the head honcho, I'm the CEO, I'm the leader, I'm the this, I'm the that. And so we hold tightly onto that identity. That becomes ego. And so the ego's job, and so ego is a set pattern of programs that we've been conditioned into. The ego's job is to reinforce its existence. And the ego's job is and has been created in a certain pattern to protect us and keep us safe. When we can understand that, it can transform our relationship to it, because then we can start understanding what it actually is and what it actually isn't. Because up until this moment, most of us believe ourselves to be the ego. So when you talk about surrender, ego says, hell no, I'm not going to surrender. That's death. To let go of my beliefs, and my beliefs, to let go of my emotions, my feelings, my beliefs, my perceptions, my thought. That's a death, and I don't want to die. And so we go into resistance. Or to let go of that way of being, of controlling. Whoa. That means I'm going to get hurt again. And so surrender, I want to propose, is our natural state. And even though we say, oh, surrender seems so hard, I'm actually saying, well, yes, it feels hard because we're locked into a sense of identifying ourselves as ego. So it feels hard because ego resists for the reasons we just spoke about. But surrender is our natural state. I'm actually going to propose it's effortless. We've just been conditioned. So for those listening to the conversation, I'm holding a pen right now, making a fist. I'm holding this pen very, very, very tightly. The more I squeeze, the tighter my fist gets. The more tight my fist gets, the more I squeeze, the more I hold onto the pen. This is symbolic of our own conditioning process and how we get to be who we are. At first, it feels very exhausting to hold onto this pen. If I hold on to this pen for a day, a week, a month, a year, but after maybe a year or a few months, it starts feeling normal, this position. So if we say let go and surrender, it should be easy. I mean, how difficult is it to actually let go and just surrender? But we've just become so conditioned to hold on that letting go can actually seem hard, but it's not. So I want people to just understand we've just become so conditioned to hold on that surrendering feels counter, but it's what's natural. If you look at a child is free. When we're so young, before we're really conditioned, right? Age 1, age 2, a child burps when they feel like burping. They're surrendering. They cry, they hit their head, they feel their feelings, they surrender, they love, they're open, they cuddle you, they just they run naked, they don't care what they look like, they'll sing like at the top of their lungs. They don't really care that I don't sound like Bruno Mars until we start getting conditioned. You don't sound good, and boys don't cry, and girls should be seen and not heard, and the conditioning process begins. So we're born these free beings in touch with the flow. We're living surrendered. Then we incarnate, we meet our parents. Our parents, they're just doing the best that they can do based on their conditioning and their programming and their ancestors and their life and their traumas. And so now we're born into a preset pattern of conditioning, and maybe dad was crazy. Maybe mom is an alcoholic. Maybe they're fighting all the time and there's instability and pain in the household. And we're constantly in this environment of feeling unsafe. Maybe they were great people, but they just didn't know how to meet our emotional needs. And so two things happen. And I think if we can understand this, it can start shifting our relationship with ourselves and shifting our relationship with surrender. So two things happen. The first thing is we start to, in this maybe environment of trauma, dysfunction, or instability, we often unconsciously begin to shut down, disconnect, not feel. We start learning all sorts of strategies to shut down, disconnect, not feel. We suppress our feelings, suppress our emotions. Year after year, month after month, year after year, layers and layers and layers of unfelt, unprocessed, unacknowledged feelings begin to build up, layer up. And before you know it, our true light, our true flow, our true essence gets kind of hidden underneath the unfelt, unprocessed feelings that we've learned to suppress in order to just function and deal. And so now we erect walls around our hearts, develop a mechanism around our heart in order to function, survive, not feel, and just deal, to protect ourselves with the environment that we're dealing with. And now we hold onto this way of being that we've learned to not feel the pain, to not feel so helpless. So we become controlling. We learn to control our emotions. We learn to control everything. Control is a strategy that's rooted in fear. So we learn to control every ego thinks if I can control everything around me and everyone around me, then maybe I'll feel safe and I won't feel helpless like I felt when I was 5 years old. And so now we go through life controlling. Also, another form of control is the sense of if I could understand everything and if I could know everything and plan everything and analyze everything, then I'm going to be, it's another form of control. So we think if we can control everything, we won't get hurt again. And this works for us when we were 5. It works for us when we're 15. Maybe it works for us when we're 25. And we take this into being a leader, a CEO, building a company. We control everything. And it works for us to a degree, but we often reach a point where it limits us and also works for us, but at what cost? Where we're stressed out, We're full of anxiety. We're constantly paranoid. We're paralyzed. And we manage to control everything, but we're so like stressed that we end up sick. We end up unhappy. We end up feeling frustrated. We end up burnt out. And so there comes a point where what worked for us to function and survive as a mechanism as children ends up getting in the way of our joy, ends up getting in the way of our aliveness, ends up getting in the way of our ability to be present, let's say, with ourselves, our needs, our children. And so the first thing is, it's a conditioning process that happens to disconnect from the feelings, a form of control, but also we learn a strategy, again, a way of surviving, the sense of who do I need to be in order to get love, validation, and approval. Oh, so we start as children, we look at mom and we look at dad. Oh, I get all A's, daddy loves me. Oh, I'm independent, I do well, I take care of everybody, then I get more validation, love. I'm a certain way, I don't get love. And so we start often unconsciously to contort ourselves into a shape, into a pattern, into who we think we need to be in order to get love, validation, approval, right, from our parents. So often that loving becomes conditional in some way. And before you know, we suppress parts of ourselves, we contort ourselves to be this person to get love, to avoid the pain. We become the shape of a person that we think is me. We call the version of ourselves that we've become conditioned into me. And we hold on to that. It gets reinforced by those around us, parents, society, culture, education, teachers, what have you. And we hold so tightly to this way of being that it becomes who we think we are. It's not who we are, it's just a pattern of conditioning. And the degree to which we are conditioned is the degree to which we're not free, but the degree to which we hold on to this version of myself that we've become, this is ego, and this limits that ability to surrender and flow. And so if we can realize, oh, maybe I'm not who I thought I was, and maybe the version of myself that I've become it's not who I am, it's just a pattern that I've been conditioned into. And so surrender doesn't mean I die. Surrender doesn't mean I'm dying. It just might mean the pattern and the configuration of what I thought I was gets to loosen so that I can reinvent myself, which is why for the ego, reinventing oneself, change can feel very difficult because the ego's job is to reinforce its existence. And so the ego wants everybody else to change. I want you to change. I want you to change. I want you to change. Everybody changes, but I'm not going to change because I got to stay the same and reinforce my existence, which is why change, even when we know change is good, can feel so scary for us because we're identified with our identity, ego. But when we know that what we think we are, this ego structure, is not who we are, that what we are is something much deeper. There is a dimension of our being that is beyond birth, that is beyond death, that is energy, that is consciousness, that is beingness. To me, when you connect with that deeper dimension of what you are, that is freedom, that is power. When I look at people like Mandela, 27 years in prison he had to, we could say, should he have not gone to prison? Could surrender might mean go to prison. I don't want to go to prison. So we could say, should he have not gone to prison? What if he had not gone to prison? Would he have gone as deep inside of himself? Would he have ripened? Would he have developed? Would he have marinated? Would he have visioned? Would he have connected to that dimension of his being that was so free of all of the world's changing comings and goings, impermanence, that he could now come out 27 years later and stand in his center and be a beacon of light and possibility and unwavering strength for humanity? He had to connect with something deeply inside of himself. And so when we realize that, oh, I'm not this changing ego form structure on a, let's say, spiritual level, I'm something more. and we start getting in touch with that beingness that we are, to me, that's freedom. And then we can look at our resistance. We can look at the resistance. And rather than fighting our resistance to surrendering, because it can seem scary, like how will I be protected and safe if I just surrender? Sometimes let's say, sometimes real surrender is acknowledging that you're not surrendered right now. And rather than forcing yourself to surrender, to understand that what's resisting means well. The mechanism that's resisting, the protector that's resisting, has a positive intention. It's just tried to keep you safe all of these years. And so rather than fighting it and trying to like change it now, that's why I say develop a new relationship with it. You can hold it and start developing a relationship with that part of you that is over controlling, with that part of you that just fill in the blank, right? With that part of you. And I think when we can meet those parts of us with space, with understanding, with compassion, we can bring ourselves into relationship with that part. And we don't have to say, okay, let go and surrender now. We can just be with that part and acknowledge the fear and start to develop a relationship with that part, because it's the ability to meet those parts of ourselves that resist with loving and with compassion, with patience, with kindness, that when we can meet the part and hold those parts with compassion, slowly they can relax, and slowly surrender can begin blossoming. But not because we're trying to like destroy it, right? Or annihilate it, but we're just being present with those parts. And I think that's when we can relax. That's when we can open. That's when the ego can also, so it's really about how you work with the ego. You know, that's when the ego can kind of like soften and the edges can soften. And it's not like someone has to stop being controlling. Like when I fly a lot, right? And so when I fly, I hope my pilot is controlling. You know, I'm like, if I said to my pilot, yeah, so how do you feel everything? Well, I don't know. Just go with the flow. Who knows what happens? Whatever happens, happens on this flight. I'm like, hell no, I'm not getting on your plane. I hope he says, I'm in control and everything is mapped out and I've gone through the course. I've gone through it 5 times. We're ready. So it's just his relationship with that pattern of control that's important. And so I think when we can, because many times the problem becomes when we start trying to, we start identifying that now we start trying to control things that we can't control. We start trying to control other, you know, the future. We start trying to control the past. We go into the future, create negative future fantasies about things that haven't even happened yet. We start trying to control the government. Now we're in a territory that starts creating suffering where we have a misaligned relationship with our own ego. So anyway, that was a long answer, but I wanted to really give it a thorough response.
That you did. And I appreciate the compassion that you are inviting us all to have towards these parts of us,
Yes.
um, who are often just very confused, perplexed parts of us that are trying to do their best to keep us essentially alive. And I just don't know how to do it in an even more adaptive way. And what's really cool is everything that you're sharing here around our own inner world, for us to surrender and enter, or at least access, these higher parts of us, this higher guidance, is this concept of as above, so below, right? This law of correspondence, right? Our inner world being projected out in our outer world. Because one of the things that I speak to CEOs about, in addition to everything that you're sharing here around kind of being resilient and being with these parts of us, is how to influence change, how to have even greater impact to help others. And it's the exact same formula, so to speak. Everything that you described, that we'd want to be with ourselves, curious and compassionate, to be with others, and then their resistance lessons, and therefore we can create change in our organizations and ultimately in our world. And it really does start with us. So would you be willing to just a little bit? I know this is a huge topic, and I invite everybody to read your books to be able to get a deep dive into this. But if someone were listening to you and saying, all right, how do I do this? How do I get into that place where I can allow myself to be with these parts, to experience the emotions that I need to experience in order to truly fully surrender? What are some nuggets that you can offer to them?
Firstly, it's that willingness to just acknowledge that we're conditioned and start becoming aware of our conditioning. Because many times we're so identified that we're not aware of our conditioning. And so just becoming aware and acknowledging that we're conditioned. And I think some of what we can start looking at too is the areas of our life where we have pain, and the areas of our life where we are constantly in repetitive loops, repeating the same cycles over and 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 over again, attracting the same people, the same bosses, the same cycles, the same dynamics, that we ask ourselves, why do I keep attracting this? Definitely we're conditioned, and our conditioning is partly creating that experience, and limiting our ability to see it differently and unhook ourselves. And so the acknowledgement, the awareness. The other thing that I think is really important as a starting place, one of the things that keeps us stuck, blocked, conditioned, not surrendering are all of the ways that we lie to ourselves. I think in many ways as human beings, for the reasons I shared, some of it's not even intentional. We lie to ourselves about what we feel. Oh, I feel great. I'm okay. We lie to ourselves about who we are. And a place to start is the willingness to just start getting real about the lies that we're telling ourselves. So to ask yourself, what lies am I telling myself? And just start taking honest inventory with that. Just looking yourself straight in the mirror and what lies am I telling myself? To me, there is no real transformation without truth. You have to want to be free more than you want what you have. And you have to want to be free more than you want what you think you want. And I think many of us, because of our fear, because of our control, because of our conditioning, we stay in relationships that we know are not aligned, where we're no longer in love, or that aren't aligned, that aren't right anymore. We work jobs, or we settle for situations, in the workplace that aren't right, or we work jobs that we hate, knowing that this is not the authentic expression of my purpose on the planet. And so if we can just start with telling ourselves the truth, what lies am I telling myself? That starts to free things up, because it's through telling ourselves the truth about who we are, about what we want, about what we feel, that we can begin to bring ourselves into relationship with reality and into relationship with what we really feel. And so many times we keep ourselves stuck by even saying things like, no, that was fine. No, that didn't really impact me. No, when I was fine, with my parents, that was fine. When unconsciously, we're carrying so much pain. We're still carrying so much pain that we're not able to access, that we're suppressing. We're not able to surrender because we've created a way of just denying as a way to cope. So just saying, you know what? That really hurt me. Not as a victim, not to wallow in something, but just to acknowledge that hurt, and I've been carrying hurt. I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't hurt about that. I'm not going to deny and live in denial or numb myself that didn't have an impact. It impacted me. And from that truth, the willingness, that's when you can then begin to feel the feelings that you've suppressed so that you can release it and let it go authentically, release it and let it go, and elevate yourself and truly start a healing process. And so what lies am I telling myself? Sometimes we're afraid to tell ourselves the truth because we're afraid of the consequences. And so again, the ego plays a sneaky game of confusion. Like, I'm not really sure what I feel. I don't really know if this has an, I don't really know what my purpose, I don't really know if this relationship is right for me. And it's another strategy of protection. And so we pretend to be confused, but deep down, we know. There is a part of us that knows everything. Because at the deepest level, we are connected to everything. We are part of everything. And so if we're really honest, we know. But sometimes it's easier to live in that smokescreen of confusion than just truly owning, I'm not in love anymore. Truly owning, this job isn't working for me. Truly owning, you know what? I do know what my purpose is. But if I don't know what my purpose is, then I don't have to take the risk and put myself out there and really go for it. And then I can always live in the safety and have the future fantasy possibility of living my purpose without actually risking. I can always just, because I don't know what my purpose is, right? I have no idea. When we know. And so it's risky to be alive. It takes great courage to be a human. It takes great courage to tell the truth. But I think living a lie is more painful. And what I would invite people is take the pressure off of yourself of having to take any action. Sometimes it's the fear of the consequence of the action. Oh, what will happen if I tell myself the truth? What's going to happen to my relationship? What's going to happen to my job? That creates the ego strategy of creating confusion as a way to sort of keep us safe. And so if you can just say, you know what, I'm going to take the pressure off of myself from having to take action. Don't have to take action, but I'm just going to tell the truth. The truth is, I haven't been in love for 5 years. It scares me. You don't have to leave the relationship. Don't have to get a divorce, but just to get into relationship with the reality of, I'm not in love. Just to get into relationship with the reality of, I hate my job. I hate it. Don't have to leave it, but I hate it. Then that starts a process inside. That's what I found. It begins a process inside, and your conscious mind and your unconscious mind start marinating, and it starts working on you, and something begins to process that starts moving you. Even if it's a micro surrender. Surrender doesn't mean blow up your life. Sometimes people are afraid to just blow up your life. It just might mean, yeah, I'm in love. And that starts a micro surrender of just taking another step to just feel what does that mean? And just going in stages. And so I would say, even if someone could surrender 10%, 20%, just by telling the truth, that starts moving you in the direction. So surrender can happen in stages, doesn't have to happen all at once. The third thing I would say, so firstly, just telling yourself the truth. And the other thing I would say is just asking yourself the question and being willing to feel the lies I'm telling myself. What are they costing me? And feeling that, because many times we feel the pain. We feel the pain of, I'm no longer inspired with my job. Something's not aligned. We feel the pain of the lie. But what we do is we distract ourselves. We drink it away, sex it away, drug it away, smoke it away, work it away, shop it away, social media it away, just so that we don't feel the pain that's inside. To me, pain is a signal. Pain is a blessing. We have to learn to make pain our friend. Pain is just that aspect of us that is trying to give us feedback, communicating to us that something is off here. There's some lie there's something that's not in integrity or alignment. And so I don't see pain as bad. I think pain is just a feedback mechanism, just shining the light, showing us that part of ourselves that needs some attention. And so we can develop a relationship with the pain and use the pain to help bring us back into a deeper integrity, a deeper truth. To me, there's nothing more powerful in leadership than being in integrity. And you can't really lead other people if you're not leading yourself. And many times we are leading others, but we're not leading ourselves. But when I think we live in integrity, live in truth with ourselves, then we are embodying our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, our spirit is coherent. Then when we speak and when we communicate to our team and those around us, the words carry a certain vibrational impact, because part of us is not here to the right and part of us is split off to the left, and we're lying about what we're feeling. Now, when we speak, everything goes in all directions and we're not really living what we are speaking. And deep down, we don't even believe ourselves, and that transmits to those around us, right? And so there is a power in truth and living in integrity. And so that second thing is the willingness to feel, to acknowledge the pain and to feel the pain, because that pain can guide us, but also acknowledging the pain and feeling the pain can allow us to let that pain go as well. And so I think that's a place that people can begin. Like if we just started to tell ourselves the truth, it would transform our lives radically. That alone would transform radically.
Thank you, Kute. And I deeply believe that you've inspired many people to do that today. And when they do that, when they find the courage that is within them to do that, they give permission for others to do it. And
Yes.
this ripple effect will get even greater and stronger, and bring even more love and truth in our world. So much gratitude to you. And I really encourage people to look into your work some more, because it goes deep and there is a lot more than what, of course, you could share in a podcast like ours today. Where can they learn more about you, your programs, your events?
Oh, thank you so much. My main website is just my name, Kute, K-U-T-E, kuteblackson.com. Twice a year, I do a 12-day transformational event in Bali for leaders and visionaries. It's called Boundless Bliss. That's www.boundlessblissbali.com. My book, The Magic of Surrender, paperback on Amazon. People can check it out. My other book, You Are the One, again on Amazon. Check it out. My podcast, Soul Talk. And yes, Instagram, Kute Blackson, Facebook, Kute Love Now.
Awesome. Thank you again for all the love that you've shared with us today and that you share every day with our world. It is making a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.